us to surf in, and that's where I've placed Doncaster in the parallel state. It is an oceanside state located somewhere in the multiverse between Japan and Hawaii. Inspired by the Japanese Shinto culture, the parallel state Doncaster believes towards nature, including a recognition of the divine spirit, which is called kami, in trees, mountains, as well as the celebration of each season. The Shinto, or spirits, are believed to inhabit all things. In Japan, it's the power, it's the phenomena that inspires a sense of wonder and awe to the beholder. And they can live in anything. It can be in the table, it can be in my sneakers, it can be in your water, it can be in you, it can be in an artwork. This means we must have to look after everything, take care of everything. Everything is significant. We don't throw trash on the floor or pollute rivers. And we also do the aloha spirit, which is a coordination of mind, heart, and each person with it brings the person to the self. Each person must think and emote good feelings and bring the life force with them. The parallel state Doncaster values time over currency, and it's known for its surf. Learning from the native Hawaiian scholars on the history of surfing, assert the native Hawaiians exercised agency and resistance to the colonial encroachment by surfing because the missionaries hated it. It became a radical and revolutionary act, like making artwork and standing up for communities can be. People come here to catch mavericks and chase giants. We measure ourselves against the surf, not each other, and respect Mother Nature. A culture of significance where everyone matters. But Doncaster, surfing in the parallel state, gives us lessons for the relationship of water and its waves and what it represents in our town. We grow up somewhere between the waves and the words, and our hair turns grey and our decades go by. We spend hours, years, months between big waves, small ones, epic ones, forgettable ones, and everyone eventually reaches the shore. The surfer is never done surfing. It's easy to question how will you spend that time if you only had a few years left. It's much, much harder when you don't know, so there's no better time, whatever Doncaster multiverse you're in, to put people, compassion and care first. Money's circulated, you can always get it back. Time is spent, you can never get that back. Let's invest our time, and it all starts with heart. We can stop the waves, but we can learn how to surf, and that's how to do the difficult work of care. Thank you.
What of Doncaster should we keep? As we leave this old Doncaster, what should we take with us? At the very beginning of the emergence of COVID-19, it's back in 2019, Mark Rappolt, who is an editor of a fancy art magazine called Art Review Asia, wrote that the devastating impact of COVID-19 makes art and the communities that engage with it more worthy of preservation than ever. As a response, I later wrote in another fancy magazine, what's worth preserving? I wasn't sure what Mark wanted to say about contemporary art and the communities that engaged with it. Is the art world that we currently have something that we really want to keep? Would it belong in a parallel state, where all citizens are equal? What kind of art was he talking about, I wondered? And who made up most of the communities that engage with it? His statement seemed to separate those who did and did not engage with art, and left me wondering, were the people he had in mind really the ones that needed most protection right now? And now as we come back to some sense of normal, or at least we talk about returning to normal, I'm left wondering whether normal really is where we want to be. If the normal is what we had before. I went on to write, as we start to rebuild our normalities, we need to ask ourselves what our past normalities had neglected. What had they marginalized? What we might bring with us into the newly emerging. As we emerge out of lockdown, what normalities are we going to accept? And today I'm going to ask a few more questions like this. Is it normal for contemporary art to be exclusive? Is it normal for the art world to rely on unpaid labour? Is it normal for contemporary art to rely on inequality? Contemporary art is open to the public again, we are told. Welcome, we are told. But who is welcome here? Who feels welcome here? Is art an invitation as much as inviting as it claims to be? Can everyone take part and take part to the same degree? And some issues, they're systemic, right? So who makes the rules? Who decides that we ought to go back to the way that things were done? Whose normal might we be returning to? What parts of Doncaster over the last 2 years should we keep hold of? As we emerge from this third, fourth lockdown, do we want to bring anything with us into the newly emerging, whatever it is we're heading, from this space, from here? The art world is a set of relations of which we are all a part, that Donny is a part of too. In fact, the world is a set of relations that we're all a part, and so what exists tomorrow, we all help to construct. In the last year, it has become clear to us that we experience ourselves not as isolated entities. Our breath has become toxic to other bodies, our proximity a danger to the strangers and communities around us. No one acts alone. What I mean by that is that our actions in the world don't only affect ourselves. Our actions implicate others. Our words implicate others, and our ideas implicate others. Who do our thoughts affect? Who do we think with? Who do we think for? We have been implicated.
We are faceless, we are spaceless, we are denied any kind of human rights. Our land is being destroyed by mining. We are on the margins of society, we cannot survive. Now, this is a story about the defects of capitalism, about power, colonialism. But how do the Adivasis respond? They respond by weaving silk, embroidering silk, and telling stories. The oral tradition in Adivasi language and history is immense. They tell stories, they don't have books, they tell stories orally, and their history is transmitted to generations to come via telling stories. So what is this, telling stories? What has that to do with being public and making space? Well, my whole life is about telling stories. My story is immense, and I hope you will see this in the film. This is not just a plug for the film, this is a methodology. We tell stories to make space public. And I want us to think about how Doncaster can tell its story, and what is the ArtBomb story? What stories can we make here and now to make this space public?
Collecting some thoughts from my community about what Doncaster could look like in the parallel state. I think a lot of it is kind of predictable what we would like and what we feel, but I'll just go straight into it. Coming out culture is a completely alien thought in the parallel state. It's something that we've never heard of before. People are, and that's just how it is. Displays of affection don't make us a target. Completely safe to just lean over and kiss our partner in public and not think twice. Equality in adoption. I don't know if people are aware of the struggles that queer people go through in adopting children. It's a lot more difficult than if a hetero couple would want to adopt. Accepted completely in religion. I know now things are a lot more progressive. It's not as difficult to be both queer and religious now, but there's still a long way to go. Sexuality and gender is fluid within every being, everyone. There's no homo, no hetero, no cis, and no trans. No names needed for these things because every person and every being is completely fluid within themselves. Blue and pink are just two colours with absolutely no connotations. We shed gender roles and they just become things that people do based on interests or individual circumstances. Everyone is free to enjoy their damn lives without fear of what people will think or do. And finally, we are never overtly celebrated because we have never been oppressed. Thank you.